Hi there, my name is Mr. Beasley, and in this video we're going to be having a look at the poem Valentine by Carol Ann Duffy. Now, Valentine, as you might expect, is a poem about love, but not the sort of shop-bought, cliched love represented by the red rose and satin heart mentioned in the first line. This opening to the poem is a straightforward rejection of this sort of empty idealism. That's why it sits on its own, separated from the rest of the poem. It's been rejected through its structural detachment. What Valentine tries to do is to convey a more honest view of love than that presented through empty and superficial love tokens such as hearts, roses, cards, or kissograms. Because love is a lot more complicated than this. It's painful, possessive, and possibly even deadly. The poem is written in the first person, which creates quite an intimate tone. You can feel Duffy talking directly to you as if you are the lover being addressed, which makes it as personal as it is unsettling. Duffy's whole assertion in this poem is that it would be disingenuous to give your partner cute cards or roses on Valentine's Day. It would be much more honest to give an onion. And the whole poem works as an extended metaphor which compares the experience of being in love to an onion. And this type of metaphor is called a conceit, because a conceit is an unusual and surprising comparison. The metaphor begins as the onion does, being a moon wrapped in brown paper. And if I go back to my image of an onion, then you can see that Duffy's comparing the brown outer skin of the onion to the wrapping paper that a gift might come in. The moon is a fairly common symbol in literature and is associated with the Greek goddess Diana, who was the virgin goddess of women and fertility. And interestingly, if you're into your classical mythology, Diana was one of the 3 virgin goddesses who vowed never to marry. The fact that it promises light might suggest the optimism which one feels at the start of a new relationship, full of hope and excitement that this could be the one. And just like a couple at the start of a relationship, there are layers that need to be removed, barriers that need to come down so that they can really get to know each other, with the hope being that this process of revelation would be done carefully and without force. Which is interesting when you think that elsewhere in the poem there is a much more forceful tone, especially at the end with the demanding presentation of the gift, which almost makes love sound threatening and menacing. The second stanza begins with the single word sentence, here. And this adverb is another command as the speaker asks for her partner to take the gift which is being offered, in this case an onion. She says, it will blind you with tears like a lover. And of course, if you have any experience of peeling onions, you'll know that they do make you cry when you peel them. So this simile works perfectly to suggest that the more you become invested in a relationship, the more you pick away at the layers of that onion, the greater chance you have of getting hurt. The speaker here creates 2 images of the emotional pain that a relationship can generate. The tears, mentioned before, can appear to make the mirror wobble, perhaps as you stare miserably at your own reflection. But the reference to a photograph might suggest another aspect of the grieving process, staring at pictures of a loved one with both affection and sadness. The next 2 lines are also structurally significant as they stand apart from the rest of the poem. The matter-of-fact tone continues with the poet's assertion that she is just trying to be truthful about what love is really like. Love can be painful as well as joyful. And the second single line of poetry here creates a tone of bitterness, maybe even anger or frustration through the use of alliteration, those hard C sounds of cute card kissogram, which reject traditional, light, fluffy and sentimental views of what love is like. In terms of structure, it's also worth noting that these two lines occur in the middle of the poem, as though they are central to the poet's message. The next stanza begins by repeating line 2. Remember that the onion is meant to be a gift on Valentine's Day, and Duffy continues to explain why this might be a far more appropriate present to give as a symbol of love. Now, as I've said before, the whole poem works as an extended metaphor, and Duffy continues by saying, its fierce kiss will stay on your lips. And there's so much going on here. Firstly, why is the adjective fierce used to describe such a tender gesture? Well, possibly because Duffy is again bringing together the two contradictory ideas about what love is like. The phrase fierce kiss is an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms, which creates an image of passion that is wild and perhaps out of control, but also potentially dangerous. And then, just like the taste of an onion, there is something enduring, lasting about this physical act, which is further developed in the next line through the adjectives possessive and faithful, which also work as a pair of opposites, and despite, on one level, the words both suggesting devotion, they do have very different connotations. Possessive is negative, indicating a level of control and perhaps even ownership, while faithful is more positive and suggests something trustworthy or loyal. And the ordering of these adjectives is interesting too. Possessive comes first, followed by faithful, followed by the final lines of the stanza, for as long as we are, as if to inject a further level of cynicism into the gesture of giving an onion as a gift on Valentine's Day. That faithfulness is not necessarily guaranteed forever. Is Duffy suggesting that too much commitment or possessiveness can actually kill a relationship? The final lines of the poem begin with an imperative, take it, which commands the listener to accept the Valentine's gift. Now, remember that an imperative sentence is created when the verb is placed at the beginning of a sentence. The poet then goes back to the image of the onion, and you need to imagine it in cross-section, like here. And I hope you can just about make out in this picture how the rings of the onion shrink down and become smaller the further into the centre you get, perhaps conveying the idea that the further into a relationship you get, the more layers of a person you are able to peel away. Duffy uses the inner ring of the onion as a metaphor for a wedding ring. The colour is silvery, like a precious metal that wedding rings are often made from, platinum. But there is uncertainty in this part of the poem, generated by those three words, if you like. The poet wants to distance herself from making that ultimate commitment herself and leaves it up to the listener to decide, perhaps out of insecurity and a wish to protect her own feelings. The final stanza of the poem begins with another of these very short lines, this time of only one word, lethal. So what is it that Duffy is using this adjective to describe? Well, on the one hand, the poem was inspired by the slicing of an onion, and she refers to the knife she is using, which obviously has the potential to be lethal. Possession is suggested here again, with the scent of the onion working metaphorically for the bond, perhaps a destructive bond between lovers clinging onto each other. The scent of the onion will remain like the memory of a lost lover. So love itself can be lethal too, perhaps not in the mortal sense, but that it can be very harmful, disastrous, or even ruinous. And so she offers this gift of an onion on Valentine's Day as her own token, her own honest token of what love as she sees it is, or at least can, be like. So what's the message of this poem? Is the poem a warning about the sorts of relationships people can have, or a realisation that when there are real feelings involved, there will be pain as well as pleasure? Whatever the answer, Duffy herself once said that she liked to use simple words, but in a complicated way. And nowhere is that more true than in Valentine.